The 2025 Megabass Destroyer Evolution lineup is here. So what does that mean if you're somebody like me that's just spent the last 4 years building my Destroyer P5 arsenal? Do I replace it with these? Do these rods have capabilities that fill gaps in my P5? Today, we're going to break down the entire Evoluzion lineup, top to bottom, casting and spinning. I'm going to tell you what the rods were built for. I'm going to share our own experiences with them now that we've had them for a while, so that you guys understand what these rods are, what they're capable of, and I'm going to compare them to similar P5s so that you know how they're going to integrate into your own rod ecosystem. So if you'd like to have a really fun conversation about an incredible lineup of rods, let's have some fun. Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, the Tackle Otaku on Instagram, joined by my buddy CJ. CJ, this has been a fun rod line to play with. We've had these things on the water now over the last few weeks. Yep. Great job filming and making us all look good.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
We have had a blast exploring and discovering the Megabass Destroyer Evoluzion lineup. It's always fun when we get new rod lines in. When they're expensive and bougie, well, it
Even
speaks
better.
to a special place in my heart. And I'm excited to finally get to break these down for you guys. Over the last few weeks, I've been answering a ton of questions, and we've been getting a lot of the same questions, which makes me believe that there's some confusion in how these rod lines come to be, and I'm hoping to kind of clear up a lot of the confusion and hopefully make this kind of a clearer vision of what might work for you guys, what you might want to keep on your radar, or what might not be necessary because you already have it built into your rod line. So first off, if you guys are old school Megabass rod anglers, then Destroyer Evolution is nothing new for you. This has been around for decades. This has kind of always been, I'm going to say, Yuki Ito's kind of like special play child, where he gets to take different tech, different styles, different models, and really kind of build, I'm going to say, nichier, kind of different style rods throughout the years in Evolution. Destroyer lineup, and now we're into the P5 version of Destroyer, has always kind of been like the day in, day out kind of bread and butter high-end rod line. So if you compare these two lines, Destroyer P5, Destroyer Evoluzion, you're kind of like comparing like, you know, maybe like an F-250 Platinum would be like the, you know, Destroyer P5 or a Tundra Platinum, right? Where you've got, it's built, it's bulletproof, it's four-wheel drive, it's got all the bells and whistles, it's bougie. And think of the Evoluzion more as like I don't know, maybe like a Shelby Cobra or, you know, a Hennessy version of that F250, right? It's just like, it's a little bit more like pushed to it, right? Which may or may not be important. I'm going to run through this now. I don't want to bore everybody with specs. We've talked specs in some previous videos, right? This is our third or fourth one that we've done on this rod line. That I just said I'm not going to talk about specs. There are a couple of things that I do want to point out that are more spec-wise. First off, you're going to hear a lot of conversation about the titanium shafts. Now, traditional rods, when you think of a P5 or a Orochi X10 or anything else, are a carbon-based, you know, blank, right? And this is very similar to that. However, the titanium shaft this year is featuring memory shape titanium fibers that run the length of these rods. And you can see them in the first kind of half of the rod. You can see those fibers going. What that's doing is titanium is a harder metal. It transmits vibration. It also has a very unique kind of bend and give and pop and power. So it's going to give when it should give, but then it snaps back incredibly fast. So what you're going to find that tends to be throughout this entire rod line is you're going to find that the rods all are going to kind of be relatively intuitive, especially on hook set or fighting fish. They're going to bend when you didn't think they were going to bend, but they all have this certain point where it shuts down and it is just straight power.
Yep.
You're going to see a theme that a lot of these rods, even in lighter powers, are capable of handling big fish, bigger weights. So it's a very, very interesting rod line. In the casting, there's also two different styles of grips, okay? And this is very important to talk about. So on your lighter powers, you're gonna have the grip that's on the bottom here that I'm showing you. You'll notice that it almost has a second trigger up towards the front. And then on the heavier powers, you're gonna get the grip that's up here up top. And you can see that that second trigger is gone. And we'll talk about this real briefly so you understand the difference. The lighter powers are built for you to palm your reel higher above the trigger, okay? Either one finger below the trigger or all hands above the trigger. Now, I've found that all the lighter powers are better here. Okay, they're better above the trigger. And what that does is that middle trigger there, that's on the lockdown, okay? So it basically centers it perfectly in your hand to where you have this incredible balance with that reel on there to where you really feel that it's centered right in your hand. The other thing that that does is it allows your top finger to then sit on that metal lockdown cap. Now, this is a one-piece bar stock aluminum metal piece that then gets that transmission of feel from those titanium fibers to the metal, to your finger, so you're getting incredible feedback on there. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is if you try to fish this thing more down here, behind that front grip, that little trigger is gonna drive you nuts. I just want you to know going in that if you have that second trigger, try it with either one finger or, how I prefer it, no fingers, and then your hands, no fingers behind that trigger, then your hands fit perfectly on there. On the heavier sizes, you're going to have a more open concept. You're also going to have a different grip design back here on the cork. Megabass rods traditionally are built for most people ergonomically to be here with the grip. Okay, so one finger above the trigger, most of your hand back here. Now, most of us in the US don't fish this way, right? Most of us are more like palmers, right? So you can either use it back here, or you can start integrating any combination of fingers back here, and it's gonna sit in very comfortable places. Your fingers are gonna rest in very comfortable places, but they're probably never going to make it to that metal piece unless you are in a very specific use, and we'll dive through these models so you'll understand what I'm talking about. That's the biggest thing. All the spinning grips are pretty much the same, and we'll dive into spinning here in a second. So without further ado, let's start digging through. We're gonna break down casting first and jump into spinning. I'm gonna start at the lightest casting and go to the heaviest, and then we'll do the same thing on the spinning so these make sense to you. Here is model number one. This is the Expata. Okay, now this is an F1.566. Okay, so the Expata is built for and advertised as an all-around topwater use rod. Now the specs are 1/8 to 1/2 ounce, right? 1/2 ounce is really going to be pushing this. If you read any of the script and they start talking about dog-X style walking baits, this rod is beautiful that way, okay? It's built very nice and parabolic, but they can have it respond and snap back without being overly whippy because of those titanium pieces that are running in there. This is gonna be a great rod for something like a Pop X, a regular dog X, not a giant dog X, it's gonna overload this rod, but a regular dog X, even a dog X quick walker, any of those smaller kind of, you know, faster moving or lightly popped baits are beautiful on this rod. You could throw a smaller little wake or a shallow crankbait on this as well, and that parabolicness is definitely going to give you an edge. Now, what does this rod compare to in the P5 line? Well, if you're comparing specs and considering that it is more of a parabolic kind of lighter rod, the Kasumi 611 is kind of the only one that makes sense in the line. When you bend these two rods, it has a very similar kind of taper and more gradual taper through here. Which one do you need or which one do you want? For me, the Kasumi 611 is a better option if you're making long casts with like more mid-sized crankbait. So, you know, a tiny Blitz DR, that kind of stuff, more open water stuff. This is a better option. But the length and the way it's built make it a little bit wobbly for precise movements of a walking bait. Okay, so I feel like the Expata really is a nice one to just kind of add to your lineup. If you throw a lot of that smaller size topwater stuff, this could be a very fun rod that really doesn't have a rod in the P5 lineup that can perform it. It's light, it's beautiful, it's crisp. There's that one. Okay, rod number 2 is going to introduce another new element called a slant bridge. Okay, now this is a styling that Megabass has done over the years with their rods that is quintessential Megabass. And at first look, it seems like it's just a bougie factor. And bro, let's be honest, it is a bougie factor, right? It looks dope. But it does have a lot of practical uses for it as well. This rod is the Cliffhanger Evolution, which is an F263. What this does and what this rod is built for, the Cliffhanger line is pretty much in every lineup now. There's a P5 Cliffhanger Thrilling that has very similar specs that I have here that I will talk to you about. There's a Cliffhanger on the Orochi X10. It's a very standard kind of bait finesse rod within the Megabass lineup. What can we expect between the Cliffhanger Thrilling and the P5 and the Cliffhanger Evolution? There are a couple of key differences. First off, the Cliffhanger, generally speaking, is a little bit faster of a model. It's going to be kind of a bridge between the hard bait and the soft bait, but generally leans a little bit more soft bait. Now, what this version is going to do is it's going to give you the sensitivity needed for bottom contact, especially if you're holding up here and palming your reel. But it's giving you a really nice soft tip that's capable of heaving 2 gram, 3 gram, you know, true legit sized bait finesse baits. We were out filming with Griff just a couple days ago, and he was throwing 2 ounce, the little bait sanity 2 ounce thing, the 2 gram, the 2 gram, sorry, the bait sanity glide, the 3 gram Nishini, all the way up to the Karashi. And they all pretty much load the same, they cast the same. Now what this rod also does is it gives you a different shutoff, and you're gonna find this throughout this line, is that even though the top section is a true kind of F2 power, it shuts down fast enough and responds quick enough that you can throw X Nanohands on here. You could throw 110 Juniors on here. So you can really kind of push towards that 1/2 ounce lure rating, no problem. Back to the slant bridge. What this is designed to do is designed to do 2 things. First, it's designed to counterbalance. Okay, so a lot of rods tend to be a little more tip heavy. This is going to counterbalance it down. But in this rod specifically, what it does is it moves that back section of handle underneath your arm. So a lot of times when you're bait finesse casting, you're not doing these big overhand casts. A lot of times you're doing these little wrist flicks, right? And you're kind of cross bodying. And what that does is it pushes it just down low enough to where you can have it slide under your arm, so your range of movement on your cast is effortless and it's wider. If you go to say something that's more of a traditional just straight, what's going to happen is you try to do the same thing and it hits you. So then you end up having to alter your wrist to kind of get it out of the way to have that same movement, which may affect you to hit the rod on the ground or in the water or the boat. So it is a very useful thing with this style of fishing for a bait finesse rod to have. So super sick. I think you're going to find versatility wise, this rod kind of combines all of the P5 bait finesse rods kind of into one. If you took the Cliffhanger thrilling, the Siglet rod, that Pop X stick, it kind of combines them all into one and gives you a super, super versatile stick.
I think that is the ultimate BFS rod for fishing around in current. Just because of how sensitive it is and the feedback you get from it. You can hit a fish, but it'll still load to fight the fish in current.
Totally.
Like, you're in that realm.
Incredibly strong. We are talking, you know, the Great Hunting lineup is one of my favorite, the Huntsman lineup, right?
Badass lineup.
Even though they're super whippy up top, they're incredibly strong rods, right? So you get that real whippiness to fling the baits, but then they shut down and allow you to really pull fish out. This entire line of Evoluzion feels that way to me. You get the action on the tip, but then once you're loaded in and you set, it's just so much power. It's a surprising amount of power.
It's a totally different feel, but you'll learn to love it.
Totally different feel. All right. Next rod up in the lineup is the North Wall. Now this is a f2.5 6/8. Again, 1/8 to 1/2 ounce. This is a rod that I'm going to need more time to really fully explore this rod and understand the capabilities of this rod. It's built as a kind of crossover bait finesse rod. The closest thing in the P5 lineup to it is the actual bait finesse rod. For me, the North Wall is kind of similar in taper. It's a little bit faster on the tip, but it has a ton of power. Okay, so if you guys are looking for something, I would say almost similar to the Cliffhanger, but you need just a little bit more length. So let's say you're looking for just, you know, one rod and all you're gonna do is go out on the lake and throw, you know, a karashi or a small bait and you just wanna bomb the cast out. This could be a really, really good option, right? If making some tighter casts and backhanded casts are going to be important to you, I think the Cliffhanger's a lot more fun and a lot easier to use. I think it's a fine rod, and a lot of you guys are probably going to be able to find the exact niche for this rod. But for now, it's kind of, for me, it's almost the same as the last rod we just talked about, just a little bit longer. So that's the North Wall.
Think it'll play in like the small jerkbait game?
Yeah, I like the Cliffhanger better. I think it's snappier, and it just seems like it has the more built-in taper. So for me, the North Wall, you know, all the bend is kind of at that top section, right? So it's kind of a faster action, but it's still whippy, right? But it shuts down much faster. So maybe if you're going true bait finesse, soft plastic, you know, Neko rig or that kind of stuff, the North Wall might be a better option for you. Next up is the Super Griffin Competition or Competizione. This rod is becoming a standout for almost all of us. Okay, now, usually when you see an f3.5 in a crankbait rod, and it is called Super Griffin, so your brain kind of goes to the Griffin crankbait. You're thinking small crankbaits, right? Now in the P5 line, they have a rod called the Z Crank Evoluzion. Specs the same, 3.5, f3.5, 7 foot, but 1/4 to 3/4. Okay. Now, a lot of you guys have this Z Crank Evoluzion. It is not a rod that I love. I don't know many of us here that love this rod. It's kind of built to throw a Z crank, right, which is just a little bit bigger than a Griffin, but you can't really do much more with this rod. They advertise it that you could throw a jerk bait on it, but it doesn't really do it great. It has some niche use. On the other hand, this guy is fine for almost anything through that kind of true 1/2 ounce size. So what we found is it is built more like a glass rod and taper. So it's a very smooth rod. It's a very easy loading rod. It casts great. But again, it shuts down very quickly, so it can manage a lot of weight. So we were even throwing things like a Blitz EXDR on this, no problem. So really kind of built as a square bill mid diving rod. So, you know, Blitz DR, S crank, you know, any of that kind of stuff would be great. I would almost say it's too much rod for a Griffin.
Yeah, for sure.
It says Super Griffin on it, and of course you could do it, but I would rather throw the Griffin on the north wall or, you know, the Expata even than on this. I feel like this is a much more powerful rod than the Griffin.
Yeah.
So did you feel the same way?
Yeah, so Griffin and I spent a couple days throwing it with the Blowly.
Okay.
And what we came to the conclusion at the end of the day is it would be a great like Z crank rod.
Yeah.
Z1, 2. Somewhere in there is maybe a little bit much for the Blowly, or like a bigger square bill, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we found our happy place with it.
Yeah. So I think you're going to find that it's a super versatile rod that for me was kind of missing in P5. I know a lot of guys like the Z Crank Elzile. It's never been one of my favorites. And I felt like it's kind of, that rod's been missing in that line, right? You've got the Mad Bull, of course, which is a beautiful, you know, reaction bait rod, but kind of for heavier cranks, right? Over a 1/2 ounce. For me, this one for that 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce, you know, and you guys are finding down to 1/4, super, super versatile rod. So I think you guys should really keep this on the radar if those are baits that you throw a lot. So that's the Super Griffin. All right, next in the lineup is another slant bridge. So there's 2 slant bridges in the casting. We talked about the Cliffhanger. This is the 110 stick Evoluzion.
Okay? So dope.
Now, I think this rod is what has a lot of people confused about the P5 versus Evoluzion lineup, because this is the 110 stick Evolution. There is a P5 110 stick as well. Okay, so this is where it's, well, which one do I get? Is this one better? This one is F465. This one is F465. So what do we need? Now, I've spent the last 4 years talking about how the P5 110 stick is my favorite jerkbait rod I've ever owned. Here's what I can tell you. This rod is not going anywhere for me. I throw a lot of 110 sized baits, like Edo Vision 110. It is unbelievable on the P5 110 stick. Okay, it is still hands down, in my opinion, the best 110 rod ever. So if you throw a lot of 110s, maybe you drop down to a 110, you know, junior +1. I say stay in the P5 110 stick. It's lighter, it's crisper, it's just perfect for that 110 size. Okay, now to this thing. This rod is also becoming a favorite of everybody, and it's taken us kind of a couple weeks to really explore this rod and figure out where the sweet spot is. For me, this is, if you took the 110 stick and the 110 special in P5 and you blended them, that's kind of what you get. Honestly, this is closer to a 110 special than it is a 110 stick. Okay, the lure rating is 1/4 to 3/4. I'm going to say it's completely wrong. If it was me making that lure rating, I'd say 1/2 to 1 ounce. So we have thrown a 110 on it. It does it fine, but I think the P5 does it better. But once you go above a 110, this rod is unbelievable. So if you're throwing +1s, +2s, if you're throwing Edo Shiner, if you're throwing Rudras, this rod is disgusting for that. On top of that, we've all thrown walking topwater baits on it. Kick knockers. Ethan was throwing a slash kicker. I mean, those are 3/4, 1 ounce topwaters. It moves them so beautifully. And with that 6'5" length, it's so effortless to keep it without slapping the boat, without slapping the water. The slant bridge is going to allow you to twitch and move the baits without it banging into your hand. It also counterbalances if you're a jerkbait guy that, you know, twitches straight up and down. It kind of throws the balance back into the center of your hand so that it's almost effortless moving it all the time, right? So you can almost see it, that it almost resets in my hand as it goes, right? So it's a beautiful, beautiful rod. I was even throwing a frog on it the other day because I just brought one reel that had braid and I only had 2 baits. And I threw a frog and I actually caught a frogfish on it. I could have never done that on a P5 110 stick, right? So this is a rod that for me, it's not going to do anything to the P5 110 stick. That rod stays. But for me, I really appreciate the power this rod has, and I like the length. It kind of replaces the P5 110 Special for me. Yeah. It's just kind of an all-around, a little bit heavier jerk bait, a little bit heavier walking bait. It's money.
Yep.
Last in this kind of grip style is the Evoluzion. Okay, this is an F4.5 610. Now, anytime we're talking about $600 rods, right? $700 rods. I think we have so ingrained in our heads that if we're spending $700, that it's got to be sensitivity.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I grew up in NRX, or I grew up in G Loomis. So when it went from IMX to GLX, we spent the extra money to get the sensitivity, right? When it went from GLX to NRX, we spent the extra money to get the sensitivity. There are not many bottom contacts in the Evoluzion lineup. Okay, Evoluzion's not really built that way in the casting. Now in the spinning, different story. Okay, in the casting, they're built, of course, to give you sensitivity, but they're built to give you casting performance and then feedback as the bait's moving. You want to feel the bait deflect off a rock, rip out of grass, blow out, not blow out, move left and right. You're going to get that transmission in these rods. Now the one kind of asterisk bottom contact rod that they did build is this guy, and this is the Evoluzion. Okay, so if you are looking for a bottom contact rod in this lineup, this is going to be the rod that you're going to want to pay attention to. Lure rating is 1/4 to 3/4. Okay, it's a pretty straightforward, I would say, medium plus to medium heavy built rod. Now the closest rod really where this plays, and this is kind of, Megabass has confused this category in P5 because there's so many rods that are the same. I'm a fan of the Dark Sleeper.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's an F4.5 7.1. This is an F4.5 6.10. You also have the X-Bites that's in the F5.5. You've got the Deimos' F5. You've got a lot of rods kind of in that category, but if we're comparing 4.5s, the Dark Sleeper is the one that you compare this to. For me, the Dark Sleeper, it feels so much more universal, I would say. Okay, so is it going to replace this rod? No, it doesn't really fill any type of gap for me in this line. Now, if I didn't have this and I was looking for just an all-around rod to throw a spinnerbait, to throw a Texas rig, to throw all that kind of stuff, then this would be a really fun rod to own.
For sure.
But for me, it's really more of a true spinnerbait, slow rolling a spinnerbait, a little swim jig, that kind of stuff. This is going to be a really, really fun rod for a lot of you guys. But if you're already integrated in the P5 and you have the Dark Sleeper and you have a Deimos, this isn't really a rod that's going to have a lot of value for you. It's just kind of a repeat in the line. Okay, so there you go. There is the Evoluzion. Okay, now we jump there's 3 heavier models. They're going to change grips here. Okay, so this is where we're going to start getting into the different grip section that we talked about this morning. So the Diablo F5.5 6.8. This rod is built to be kind of a multi-purpose, kind of heavy cover power-esque style rod. Okay, so it's built with a very kind of gradual taper, you'll see. So it kind of bends through the middle of the blank. So you can do things like a chatter bait with this thing. Yep. You could do a wake bait, you could do a buzz bait, you could do all those types of things with it. It shuts down incredibly fast. It's very, very strong. The closest thing to compare it to, honestly, is the Suba Destroyer. Right, so these 2 rods are very, very similar in specs, in capabilities. They're both freaking beautiful, right? Power-wise, they're very similar rods. When you really kind of bend them and get them into them, it's almost the same exact taper. So if you're skipping jigs and you're utilizing the Suba Destroyer for what it was built for, it's going to be a very similar rod to this Diablo. Now, if you don't have the Suba Destroyer in your lineup and you need a little bit shorter rod for skipping, for pitching, for making these tighter type casts, I can tell you that we all love this rod. It's a really fun rod, okay? It's kind of a rod we already have, but it's a really fun rod and it's a beautiful rod. So tons of power. You can't really go wrong with this thing, okay? So there you go. There is the Diablo. This is a favorite, I think, of everybody's, okay? This is the old 666, the F666 Damian.
Yep.
Pretty much every rod line right now has this 666 power. In Orochi X10, you have the Destruction 66. In P5, you have the Killer Code, which is also an F666. Okay, the difference between these rods is pretty night and day, though. Okay, so if you guys have the Killer Code, or if you've looked at the Killer Code in P5 is a very bendy rod. Okay, it's super parabolic, it's got a lot of power, but it bends very, very deep into the rod, almost all the way down here, and I can still bend way down here by the grip. Okay, the Damian is a completely different animal. It's a much faster rod. It's got a little bit of a tip, and then it shuts down. Okay, so this rod is going to be an amazing option for a frog, for pitching heavy cover. It's built to be able to handle things like an eye slide, an eye wing, mag draft freestyle. All those things are butter on here. It's got enough of a tip to cast well, but it's got tons and tons of power, and it fishes really, really light.
Yep.
Okay, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like the lightest rod I've ever picked up, but when you fish it all day, you don't even notice it. It fishes very light. So it centers in your hand really well. It's an effortless rod to use. For you kayak guys that fish tight quarters that need a shorter rod, this is money. If you fish kind of like what we do out here, where we have a lot of wood, so we have a lot of taller trees, where sometimes we got to smash in and we got to, make tighter casts. This is a great length to be able to still do all of those things. If you're shore fishing, this should be a great length for you as well. It reminds me a lot, actually, of the Teckle Frog game. It's probably the closest one, but it's faster. It's a little bit faster, right? So it's a very, very useful rod. I think you guys are really going to love this thing. That's the Damian.
And dude, when we were shooting our promotional video, for Griff, that was the first rod he picked up for the shore, and for Luis, that was the first rod he picked up for the kayak.
It just gravitated to it.
If you love throwing cool shit, that's your rod.
That's it. Yeah, if you threw the TK, the Osakana slide, that new Muon on it, and you just dead walk with that thing because of the length, you're right. That would be a dirty dead walk rod.
Yep.
Okay, and then the final rod in their lineup is the F772. This is the Destruction. Okay, so this is the largest rod they're doing now in the Evoluzion. So gone is the white python. Little tear for that one. So maybe we'll see that again someday. Okay, the Destruction. This is a 1/2 to 3 ounce lure rating. It's a huge lure rating. Really, to me, this is a shorter version of the BMG. Okay, now you've heard me talk about the BMG for, since it's been out, but a lot this year, because I've really found my sweet spot love for this rod. For me, the BMG is probably the most versatile rod in the P5 lineup for heavier stuff, right? It can throw heavier hard baits. It can throw mag drafts. It's been my mag draft rod for a long time. It throws, you could throw a Carolina rig with it. You could drag a big football jig with it. It does so many things, but because of that kind of fluid taper through the middle, it just allows you to do both soft plastic and hard bait. This Destruction is very similar in feel to that. So it has kind of this kind of fluid bend through the midsection. However, when it shuts down, it is straight power. It's a crazy powerful rod. So in my personal opinion, it's stronger than the BMG. I know when you hit a fish, the BMG sometimes still feels like the whole thing's bending, which I love. This one doesn't feel that way. It bends and then it shuts down and then you're just yanking fish out. So if you guys are around a lot of super heavy cover, and you want a little shorter rod, this could be an incredible option for you. It's a really, really fun rod, very powerful, super versatile. That's the Destruction.
That one's going to play really good as well.
It's going to have a lot of use.
Boat guys are going to love that one.
All right, spinning. Should we just spin this rack around?
Let's just flip her around.
Let's dive into spinning. Spinning is where things get really, really interesting to me in this lineup. So you're going to have some slant bridge, some non-slant bridge rods in the line. And we'll explore which ones have it, which ones don't, why they have it. So let's start right here. We're going to start from the lightest power and go to the heaviest power. By the way, your hand's going to basically be sitting up here, right? So in very similar style to most Megabass rods, right? You're going to be either here or here. If you know anything, you're going to hold it above the reel. But if you're a weirdo, I pointed at you, Griff, for no reason. You might hold it back here. Okay. Here we go. This is the Lychon MS mid-strolling. It's an F163. Okay, this is the rod. If you watched the hype piece that we did for the Evoluzion drop, you would have seen Ethan fishing from the boat, Louise fishing from a kayak, Griff fishing from the shore. The reason we wanted to create that piece is to show how versatile these rods are, but also how strong and durable these rods are. A lot of times you think of like a $700 rod, you think it's like dainty or, delicate, or they could break easy. And this rod lineup is incredibly powerful, incredibly strong, and super versatile to be able to adapt to whatever style fishing we all do. The same is true with these F ratings. So usually when I see an F1, I run, because I don't like little dainty things, right? But you would have seen Ethan throwing this rod mid-strolling and landing a 7-pounder in that hype video that was down. It was a long cast, down 20 feet, 5-inch Sakamata shad with a horizon head, and it handles it no problem. And the reason for that is those titanium shafts. Now, if you're comparing it to a P5, there is an F166 Kirasame. When I pick this rod up, I feel like I need to be trout fishing.
Yes, and that's why we use it a lot.
Like a little delicate bug bait, right? It weighs nothing. The tip is just so dainty, right? It feels like a tiny little stick in my hand. When I pick this one up, it feels substantial. And a lot of that is because it has that extra weight built in with the slant bridge back here. But the power this rod has to throw much above its lure rating and to manage big fish, it's there. Yep. So this is a very exciting rod. Like, I don't love mid-strolling. I would rather throw at a freaking tree or a mat or a bush. But the reality is that a lot of our lives now are spent that way, and a lot of people love fishing that way. And if that's you, then this is a rod that I would definitely keep on the radar, because it's probably the most versatile strolling rod that I've seen. For me, this is right there with that Steez reel control, only this feels more substantial. You could put a 3000 size reel on here and it's not overloaded, and it's got tons of power. That slant bridge is going to help you counterbalance. So if you're mid-strolling and you're shaking your minnow, right, it's constantly counterbalancing so that you can do it effortlessly all day and you're not fighting either the rod tip or your butt section. It's literally just putting it right back into place so that you could fish all day and enjoy. Yeah. So this one's gonna surprise people. This is in everybody's boat already. It's become a favorite. So there you go. That is the Lychon MS mid-strolling. Now on the flip side to that, there is also a Lychon LD. This is the long distance. It's an F1.5 610. I'm gonna give this rod some time. I'm gonna see if I can find a reason to like this rod. But for me, this rod is kind of the opposite of the last one. I don't really get this one. It's got a lot of bend all the way through it. It's, kind of also designed as a strolling rod, but you lose the counterbalance, so it ends up being tip heavy. Comparatively in the P5, the baby plugging's an F1.5 7.2. This is an F1.5 610. Honestly, they're kind of similar rods. So they bend very similar. They never really stop bending. The baby plugging's not a rod that I use a lot anymore. It's kind of got just one or two, simple uses for me. I kind of find this rod to be similar. Now, don't just listen to me, right? Pay attention to what guys start using it for. And it might surprise us on things, but we haven't really found the sweet lane for this rod yet. So, you know, for me, it's still in progress, kind of moment. One rod that's the opposite opinion of that. We all love this one. This is the Suba Magashi. So this is an f2.5 70. Now, if you knew of the old Evoluzion lineup, they had a rod called the Spin Elzile. It was in all of our boats. You know, if you're born in Arizona, you're drop shotting, and you're no-soak drop shotting a lot.
Yep.
That Spin Elzile was kind of this beautiful, perfect combination rod where we no-soaked on it mostly, but if you needed to switch over to a rebarb, it had enough power to do it. This is kind of the replacement for that rod in this lineup. It's a different rod. It's not going to fish exactly the same, but it's built for a nose hook drop shot, a Neko rig, any of that kind of open hook style finesse fishing. This rod is beautiful. It's light, it's balanced really well, it's incredibly sensitive. So again, you got those titanium fibers running right into your hands. It's funny. It's a longer rod than the last one, but it's just centered so much better in my hand. It's much more balanced down here where my hand is. So I can't say enough good things about this. Really, in the P5 line, you kind of have the Flissa is really the only option as a true nose hook drop shot rod. But it's too long for a lot of people, right? So if you wanted a shorter version kind of that rod, that's kind of where this rod plays, okay? So that's the Suba Magashi. That is dope. Two thumbs up on that one.
People are going to like that one.
Yeah, that one's going to be a hit. The Hedgehog syringe, okay? So we just talked about a drop shot, Neko rig, kind of open hook rod. Same thing with this one.
Yep.
Okay, so now you got to start making decisions. Or this is where your bouginess is going to have to factor in, like, well, am I ultra bougie and I want one of each, or am I going to force myself to pick? The Hedgehog syringe is kind of a throwback to the Hedgehog. You know, the Hedgehog has been in and out of the line Megabass ecosystem for years and years and years. You've got an F3 611, 16th to half ounce. Basically, the difference between these two rods is this is a stinger tip rod and the other one is more of a true natural taper. Okay, so what that means is the top section of this rod is going to be a carbon tip. Okay, so all of your bend is pretty much going to be high on the rod. Okay, so it's going to be very fast up here and then it instantly shuts down, so it's all power down here. Where the Suba Magashi is going to be more of a true bend taper through. Okay, so for me, if I'm reel setting, I like this more like true natural taper, right? So like if I'm dragging a nose hook drop shot along and thunk, there's my bite, and I just want to kind of load and set, I like how this style of rod sets, okay? But if I'm really looking for very minor movements, right? Let's say I'm throwing my bait out and I want to just, you know, really lightly get that bait to kind of shake or move without it dragging or moving too far to me. That's where that stinger tip can really come into play. Okay, so just two different styles. They accomplish the same thing, but it's just going to come down to a personal preference of which style fishing you like. But it's a beautiful rod. There's really not a rod like this in the P5, so I don't have anything to compare it to. It's a really, really good rod. I think it's going to be for sure a standout. It can also stroll. You know, a lot of strolling guys like that kind of carbon tip, not necessarily specifically built for strolling. I think that Lychon is amazing. But if you wanted something with a little bit more power, a little bit more length, this would be a great option. For me, this is a better option than the long distance one is, okay? So that's the Hedgehog syringe. The one question inevitably I'm always getting asked, right? Which one's like the Windbuster, right?
Of course.
So, all right. So we've made everybody familiar now with the Windbuster. In my opinion, probably the greatest all-around spinning rod ever made for me.
Might be.
It fits my style of fishing so well. The Windbuster, of course, in the P5, designed as a hard bait rod. I almost never throw hard baits on it. It's pretty much just a bottom contact rod for me.
Yeah, it does it great.
Something through the process has made it incredibly sensitive, but a lot of guys throw jerk baits on it. You know, that's probably the hard bait that I throw. If it's ultra windy, it makes a great jerk bait rod. But it's relatively fast, Okay, so it's got a little bit of a natural taper, but it shuts down and it's got a lot of power. So it ends up being a very intuitive, just a great all-around bottom contact rod. Well, in the Evoluzion lineup is a rod called the Lyiri. Okay, and so if you're trying to compare to a Windbuster, this is the one that you're going to compare to. So it's an f3.5 7.3. Windbuster is an f3.5 7.2. This is an 1/8 ounce to 5/8 ounce. It has the slant. Okay, so you've got the slant bridge on there. Griffin and I were talking about this rod the other day. I feel like Griff nailed it in what he said. I feel like this is the rod the Windbuster was trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the Windbuster is a special rod that it wasn't really trying to be.
Yeah.
Right? It turned into being this amazing bottom contact rod that can throw hard baits. But this rod is really kind of built as a hard bait spinning rod that can then throw soft baits. Okay? So you're going to see that it bends much deeper than the Windbuster bends through the middle. So as a true reaction rod, I think this rod is going to handle it better, but it shuts off and is so sensitive down in this back section. It's crazy sensitive.
Yep.
And you have this slant bridge to kind of counterbalance. So you put a 3000 size reel on here and you kind of do these up and down lifts with a free rig or shaky head or Texas rig. And that counterbalance really keeps it centered in your hand. Now, it's a much heavier rod than the Windbuster. Okay, the Windbuster is lighter than this one because of the extra hardware on there, but it's also a much more powerful rod than the Windbuster. So if you guys are fishing big open water, I could see us having a ton of game like the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Guys are always looking for a rod to drag a 1/2 ounce or a 3/4 ounce, drop shot, or just something bigger and stronger and beefier. This is going to be an incredible rod for you guys. It's sexy as hell.
It's sick looking.
It's just disgusting looking. So I love it. I think for me, it just kind of goes hand in hand with the Windbuster. Okay, it's not going to necessarily replace it. It's just going to kind of extend and give me a little bit beefier version, I would say, of what's already existing in the P5. Okay, so that is the Lyiri.
I feel like you got to have both.
Well, of course you got to have both, but this is our bougie factor talking. All right, and then one more rod, and we are through the lineup. This is the f4.5 6.2. This is the Hedgehog Stinger. Okay. Now, this is the rod that you and Luis were abusing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I am very, very interested in that rod. I haven't found a niche for it to do exactly yet, but whatever I find that it does super well, it's going to kill it at.
Yes. So this is another unique rod, and this is definitely more of a niche-y style rod. This isn't this type of fishing that everybody does. There are a lot of times where you need to present a small bait into nasty stuff, okay? That's what this rod was built for.
Yep.
This rod was built to throw a small jig, a small worm, a light drop shot, a little bug bait, light Neko rig, something, that you can't do with a casting rod, right? If you're going to throw just a full-size beaver or something, you go to the Damian or, your flipping stick or whatever, and you can throw it. But sometimes you need a spinning rod to be able to present smaller, lighter things in, but you still need power to yank them out of heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. This is that rod. Okay, so again, it's going to have that carbon stinger tip on it. So even though it's incredibly strong and incredibly powerful down here, it has the ability to make little micro movements. So you can move a small little bait, a little light bait. This would be a super sick rod too to throw like a unweighted like fish roller.
Yes, absolutely.
This would be a killer rod for that. It's a technique that we've all been doing a lot here, that you just kind of cast it out on the surface and you just kind of wind it in and skip it on the top, and it looks like a shad moving around. You can't really throw that on a casting rod, but if you're throwing it in thick stuff, you kind of need the power. This gives you the power. The slant bridge keeps it totally balanced in your hand, and that's going to be the biggest difference between the Evoluzion and the P5 version. So the P5 also makes a rod called the Kirasame Kameyama Special. It's an f5 6.5, same basic idea where it has that carbon tip back there and then it shuts down. It's very, very powerful. The challenge to this rod is that it's super tip heavy. right? So depending on what you're doing or how you're fishing it, it's really tip heavy in the front. I mean, you can just kind of see it, right? I mean, no matter what I do, even if I put a 3,000 reel, I mean, it's a $500 rod, so I'm going to put an exist on it, right?
Of course,
it's not enough weight to fully counterbalance that tip, right? The difference is with this rod, you'll see it in my hand, it almost like perfectly balances it there, right? And then you add the reel, and then it's just like perfectly centered. So your control and your enjoyment of using it is just so much more balanced to your body. It's just a really, really fun rod to use. Incredibly strong, definitely nichey.
Yep.
But super cool, right? So that is the Hedgehog Stinger. So there you go, guys. There is the full breakdown, top to bottom, every model in the brand new Megabass Destroyer Evoluzion lineup. That is a full recap on so far our experience that we've had with them. Of course, this is a pretty new lineup for everybody. We've only had them a few weeks. We've been beating them up pretty good, so I feel very confident with everything I've spoken to you about. But of course, as time goes and we use these rods for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, we'll have more feedback and we'll continue to give you guys feedback and of course answer any questions that you guys have. Okay, so if there's anything that we didn't touch base on or you have questions, please drop it down in the comments below. Or of course, I leave my Instagram handle at the beginning of every video so that you can find me, pretty much live there 24/7. I will go down any rod rabbit hole you want to go down. So holler at me anytime. CJ will put links to the rods down there. And of course, guys, on behalf of myself and CJ and Ethan, Griffin, Louise, and everybody here at the Hookup Tackle, guys, thank you for your business. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching these videos. Holler at us anytime. We are here for you. We will see you again soon. If you pick up the Evoluzions, enjoy them. You are going to absolutely love them. So for now, it's peace. Later.
See ya.